So the N24 just happened and it was chaos. How do I know that? Because I was in it and had to avoid my own fair share of helmetry. Full video of that coming up soon, by the way. But there were so many interesting incidents in this race that I thought I would apply my steward's cap and give you my opinion, especially on that kind of controversial one. Also, I am now super close to 1 million subscribers, so I'd appreciate it if you could help me get there by hitting the sub button down below. So the first incident we're going to look at took place in qualifying, specifically the top qualifying for the SB9, or as you guys know it, the GT3 class of cars, with my boy Mirko Bortolotti. If you're unaware, during top qualifying there was a huge crash for Laurent Vanthoor in the Porsche at Schradenkreuz. Really scary crash. Luckily he was okay. Main thing, that's very important. And because that barrier needed repairing, there was a red flag, which under the regulations for the race means you slow down to 80 kilometers an hour, about 50 mile an hour or so, and trundle back to the pit lane. I have done one of these laps before. It takes like 20 minutes. It's balls. But my boy Mirko Bortolotti missed that memo and went through at full speed, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 9 red flags. And also overtook a car in the process, which again, big no-no. Now for me, as someone who understands the regulations of this circuit and who has seen it from a personal point of view with Steve, of course, this is a instant DQ from the race. He's out. He should be out. There were a couple of drivers in qualifying who lost their permit, which is the equivalent of what should have happened to Bortolotti for speeding in a code 60. Exactly what happened to Steve last year. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't contest the fact that you should get slapped and thrown out of the race if you're doing a high speed through a code 60. The reason for that is there could be people on circuit, it's a dangerous environment, it's the same sort of thing. The red flag also holds that severity to it as well. But the actual ruling, alongside this very weird thing from the stewards, which basically said that, well, he didn't anticipate a red flag, so it's okay, we'll deal with it after the race, only gave the car a end-of-line penalty, which means it started from the back of Group 1, which in a GT3 car in a 24-hour race isn't really a penalty at all. Honestly, I'm a bit biased, because what happened to Steve last year sucked. And I agree with the penalty, but it sucked for Steve, it sucked for the team. It feels like, because this guy was in a GT3 car, is a famous name, he got given a free pass. And yeah, he did lose his permit after the race, which means he'd have to redo it again if he wants to race there again this year. But he only races there one time a year for the 24. So it doesn't matter, it's not a penalty. Safe to say, I don't agree with the stewards in this one. Really weird penalty. I don't know. Nothing against Bortolotti personally, you know, it's not about that. It's just the point of inconsistent, unfair stewarding. Interested to hear your opinion on that one, guys. So next up is this move, only 20 minutes into the race, by Adam Christodoulou. I love Adam, man, but he absolutely shoveled this Lamborghini off circuit. We only have this one angle, which is the onboard here, but he then lets the Lambo back through, I think. But this just goes to show how frantic and how quick the pace is for these GT3 cars. I mean, we come into this, there's lap traffic in play here on the right-hand side as well. Lambo goes defensive, then goes around, opens the door, and then kind of starts coming back across to block again. I think Adam was kind of within his right there to go for a move. We had to change the direction from the Lambo to the right-hand side, then started to move back across like he wasn't there. So it was a bit of a dive bomb. There was contact, and to be honest, maybe they could have not continued into the corner like this. They both sort of missed the corner at that point. But I think Adam letting the Lambo back through, that's fine. You can just get rid of that now, throw that out. But I wanted to include that just because it shows you how frantic the racing is at the top end of the field. These guys are racing like that for 24 hours, and from my point of view as to them, traffic, it was terrifying at times. Whenever I saw GT3s in the mirror, I just got the hell out of the way. Easiest thing to do. Now this next one, I didn't really understand. We're coming up Kesselchen, which is an extremely fast part of the circuit. I mean, you're 250 kph in a GT3 car up here, similar in our SB8T GT4, by the way. And we're on board with Christopher Haase chasing an Aston Martin in front.
To very describe, it's not exactly, it's about a paintbrush wide. Absolutely is. Christopher Haase ended up completely on the grass. And you know what? By the time they got...
On the face of it, it looks pretty stupid. Haase just didn't quite acknowledge the fact that there was traffic here. Not quite sure what this car was doing. They're on a very weird part of the circuit this came in front. And again, in the Cayman's defense, it's terrifying to have all these cars going by you. If you're not quite used to it, as a lot of people taking part in the N24 are not really... They don't do a lot of NS racing for the year. Sometimes they just turn up for the 24. Yeah, it can be confusing where to go. But this traffic moved in a weird way. The Aston has to respond to it. And then Hassa just doesn't lift and drives into the back of him. Like, you had a lot of time there to see that you weren't going to make that. You were going to have a hit. I don't quite understand it. Because the Aston's going to stay where he is because he's got traffic ahead of him as well. It just seems very short-sighted, very aggressive, and really going for a move that wasn't on the contact, the result of which, contact into the back of the car in front and going off at one of the fastest parts of the circuit, damaging the car on the left-hand side. Really lucky that it wasn't worse than this, in my opinion. And for me, honestly, I think it's a penalty. I think I would penalise for that because it just, you can't drive through people, especially on this part of the circuit when there is traffic. Traffic is a big part of the race. It's going to affect drivers as they go on. Throwing the car into that situation and expecting, I don't know, the seas to part, it's not the one. You might look like a hero if you get it right, but here it just looked silly. Very lucky that that wasn't a huge accident.
For Porsche number 94.
Oh,
What a huge hit for the 33. Second place car
God.
has absolutely walloped it. And this is massive drama at the...
This one was heartbreaking. At this point, this car is facing the apex with its high beams on. And Adelau, who's currently in second place in the Falcon Porsche, comes from the corner completely blinded by the lights. And just has a head-on crash with this 94. It's so sad to watch.
Number 94 of... What a huge hit for the 33.
So yeah, look, on board here.
Absolutely unsighted. And it's...
Let's just slow it down though. Come through the left. You're already looking really far left at this point. Don't see this, and then suddenly, bam! Oh, it's such a unlucky crash. It really is. And now it is completely innocent in this. To be fair, kind of so is this Porsche. If it was me, because he did sit there for maybe about 30 seconds, this Cup car, I would have just, as quick as possible, got out of the way. It's really hard to do there. There's not really like a set precedent, because cars are still coming at you quickly, and at some point you have to just go, I need to get out of the way here, and I would have just sent it inside. I'm talking like, with hindsight, it's easy to offer suggestions, but this was just terrible luck. And now just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that put them out of the race. They were done after that. This one, for me, is like one of the stupidest incidents I saw in this race. Now, I don't actually know if this car got penalised for this, because I think I was asleep when this happened. This is the same car that had Bortolotti in it. This time piloted by Danny Incadella. Just, in my mind, flat out destroying this Hyundai. Let's watch the clip.
Cortez delivers. Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone!
So let's break down what happens here. We're currently in a code 60. We all know about those by now, but it basically means you have to build your pit limiter 60 kph through this section of the circuit. At the green flag here, you are allowed to accelerate. And at this point, the Hyundai quite far over to the right-hand side of the circuit, and if I'm a GT3, I'm going, cool, I'm going to go through this gap. However, as we get to the line, which is here, you can accelerate, Hyundai accelerates, so do we. This gap is closing. It's closed by now. It's been closed for a while, and Juncadella drives into the gap on the grass, and yeah. Now again, I understand it's a split-second decision, and if it were me as well, I'd probably have gone for this gap initially. But at this point, I would have gone, okay, he's not giving me that. Time to go around the other side. Because he just goes straight to it. He is in the middle of a circuit. It is weird behaviour by this car to sort of just sit in the middle there. But at the same time, especially in the regulations and what we were told in the driver briefing for this event, it's up to the faster car to make his way safely around slower cars. This is going to come into play later on for another incident that we're going to look at. But slower cars can indicate literally that they're giving way by whacking on the indicators and moving to the side of the road. You'll see me do that a lot in my video when that comes out later on. The Hyundai does not do that here. This next corner does come over to the right, so the tarmac will disappear, and I think it's just a bad call from Juncadella. And unfortunately, it destroys this Hyundai's race. I don't know, maybe tiredness is coming into play or something like that, but any move you have to go onto the grass for, like this, to overtake, quite significantly on the grass, by the way, it's always going to end in this stupid way. You know, when I see stuff like this posted online, I see a lot of blame for the slower car. I'll be like, well, he should have got out of the way. It's like, well, he's also entitled to exist on this piece of racetrack. And although some of the decisions that have happened this weekend from the stewards might not support that, just because you're in a GT3 car doesn't mean you can do what you want. This was, for me, a pretty clear-cut, pretty substantial penalty for Daniel and Kadea. What was the actual outcome, though? No, I can't find it. So yeah, I mean, I tried to look it up online. I don't know if they got a penalty for this or not. If you guys can find that info online, feel free to whack that below in the comments. I'm interested to see if they were penalised for that or not. Ah, yes. The 74 and the Dacia Logan. The demise of the Logan. I was actually in the car when this happened. I drove through this, and I remember thinking, like, both these cars are definitely out. Huge crash. But we don't really know what happened because the camera angle doesn't quite pick it up in time. I mean, here it is. So you can see blue flags being waved. Logan on the left-hand side. It does turn in to take the line of the corner. Then the crash happens. We don't know what happens here. All we do is hear it. And then we see the aftermath. Car on the right. It's gone into the wall on the left. There is damage to the barrier there. I think this is where the Dacia gets hit. I don't know. The commentator says about, like, it's like crash scene investigation. There's barrier damage here. They would repair this. This wouldn't stay, so this has to be there. There are also some marks here, but they're a bit ahead of that. But they do correlate to this big mess here. Here's what I think happened. The Logan goes into the first part of the corner and then starts to go out to the outside, the sort of racing line through there. So starts being around here on the circuit, on the second part of the corner of the course, down the bottom here. The Aston Martin goes for the move up the inside, gets it wrong, spins over the front of the Logan like this, hits the barrier hard, front left, gets ejected over to the other side of the circuit. The Logan, in this contact, goes straight on into the wall, which I think supports my theory because it had front left damage. Hit the wall like that, and then that was their race over. So miscommunication between the two cars, but at a very, very fast part of the circuit. I mean, we're not a GT3 car, but a good apex speed for us through the first part of the Blue Patch right is about 195, 200 kph. Here that is in mile per hour for you people who are so inclined. And it's never going to be a small crash there, ever. On the theory of that, I would say it was the fault of the Aston Martin for not overtaking correctly, but that's just a theory. A game theory. So we don't actually know what happened there. But it does start another discussion, which I would love to hear your guys' opinion on. Should the Logan be allowed to race? It is significantly slower than anything else on the circuit. And you could argue maybe it's a little bit of a hazard. Personally, actually, you know what? I'm kind of mixed because this car has been involved in 2 huge crashes over the years. And I think it's only a matter of time before something really bad happens. I don't want that for the Logan or for anyone else caught up in that sort of incident.
A Porsche and
oh, so I was actually in this one, not the crash, but in the footage. Look, there's me. I was like one of the first to arrive here. I remember going around the corner, seeing this big cloud of dust, and thinking like, oh, Jesus Christ. Coming down, this is just after Howat. We're going down towards Whipperman now, which is a very... It's narrow anyway, but this part of the circuit is kind of one line only. And this is a very difficult place to overtake someone. We overtake quite a lot coming out of this right-hander. There's the little sort of squirt between here and there. This is where the line is, and it sort of crosses over to the other side of the circuit. See the Porsche sort of showcasing that somewhat. We have a Cayman and TCR together.
Up towards
the TCR
Brunchin, and that
just starts to come across. Like the car isn't there at the end there. The Cayman is still there.
And that's a
and just collects it.
Cupra
both into the barrier.
That's not even a GT4 car either, is it?
Right.
No, it's the standard 91 Cayman.
Yeah.
Just closed the door right off. That was the Asbest Racing Cupra.
I don't think the Cayman closed the door at all on that one. I disagree with that, Mr. Commentator. I think the Cayman was just driving his line. Look, he's going straight. He's going straight. He's going straight. This guy comes across. Bam.
From the Cupra.
Yeah, sideswipe from there you go. So that one's just like it's quite simple. It's 2 people going over the same piece of racetrack at the same time, and this guy just maybe thinking he was clear of the car, maybe expecting the Cayman to lift. You can't expect the other car to do things. You have to, in these races, you have to drive with this margin of error of like 5-10% where you think, right, okay, maybe I'll give that a wider berth than I need to, because otherwise stuff like this could happen. And it only takes one little incident like this and your entire race is over. Both cars were out of the race after this with only 5 hours to go. Imagine getting through the night, getting through the tough bit, and then ending your race in a silly moment like this. It's a real shame for both drivers there. Right, the big one. Now this incident caused so much controversy. I was in the car when it happened, so I didn't know about it until I actually rolled through under code 60, saw the car on its roof, and was like, oh my god, what happened here? To which my engineer simply said, Grello did that.
As they're heading down towards Versailles. Oh, and the leader has hit another car, and almost cannoned. He has. It's cannoned one BMW into another.
Let's break down what happened here. So we're going through miss, hit, miss. Multiple apex corner, Aston Martin in front. Grello goes for the move. Kevin Estre at the wheel, up the inside of the Aston Martin. Goes onto the curb to try and make it work. The Aston Martin's just not seen him go for the move. Grello hits him. The car is now out of control. Goes into the barrier on the left-hand side and is just ejected and goes straight onto its roof. The Rover BMW has to get out of the way to... Oh, hits the curb hard though, avoids it. And they both get through, but the Aston Martin done so on its roof. Terrifying for that poor GT4 car. But was it a penalty for Kevin Estre? In real life, it was. This is what lost Manthey the win of this race after leading but basically the entire thing. A few important things to note. One, blue flags. Blue flags at the Nürburgring don't mean what they mean in F1. Blue flag simply means there is a faster car behind you. Like, that's it. That's all it means. There's no get out of the way. There's no watch out. Oh my god. It's just, hey, there's a car behind you, mate. Just so you know. That's basically what it means. And I read somewhere that the Aston Martin had been given maybe 2 or 3 blue flags from the Marshall post, which are quite close together there. So maybe that's 2 or 3 blue flags in like 20 seconds or so, 20, 30 seconds. So at that point, they would have been aware that there were probably some cars behind them. And I will say, as a driver, you can kind of tell which of the GT3s behind you. They have different lights, and the way they catch you is, it happens very quickly. So you should know as a driver you're about to be passed by a GT3 car. Also, the indication rule. Although it's not a rule, it's more just like etiquette on the circuit that is followed by pretty much everyone, which is, if you're letting someone by, you indicate to do that and you move your car to the side of the circuit. Open up the gap, make it easier for them to do. The Aston Martin didn't do this. It sat in the middle of the road where it felt safe. To be honest, what part did they hit him? We have the miss, where the car's up the inside. Aston is turning in to hit the hit. As you do. He then finds Grello there instead. And then here's the miss, which the Aston, yeah, definitely missed. So the Aston is kind of taking the race in line through there. It may be a little bit narrow, but he's entitled to do that. Under the rules of the racing, he's entitled to be there. Didn't indicate he was getting out of the way. Had been shown blue flags. That's fine. But under the letter of the law, this is always a penalty because the contact was caused by Estre in the Manthey car. He put the car on the curb on the inside and forced the overtake, which unfortunately resulted in contact, which resulted in the car rolling over. And this was protested by Manthey, but I just don't really see how. Like, it's always on the faster car in this scenario. So in my opinion, was this penalty correct? Yes. You can't do that, because if every GT3 driver drove like this all the time at the ring, there would be no one left. And I understand these guys are pros, they're at the top of their game, and they are basically just being held up by this traffic, and it can be massively frustrating, especially when you're, in this, I say, you're 5 hours from the end of the race and you're fighting for the lead with the Rover car. You know already this is going to go down to the wire as the driver. But yeah, this is easy penalty in my eyes. Just a real shame they had to dictate the race, because that Manthey car was unreal the entire race. Made one bad judgment call here, and it cost them everything. That's the beauty of endurance racing. So yeah, the N24 was pretty chaotic, and I'll be making a full video on my perspective very shortly. But for this, what do you think? Do you agree with my assessments and all this tomfoolery? Or do you have your own opinions? Let me know down below in the comments. Take care, have an awesome day. See you next time.